guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jessica Flynn and I am the owner and maker of Flynn Sisters Boutique. And today we're going to be making this really cool like geode fault line looking tumbler. Now this is not my design. This was not my idea. I was inspired by a different Jessica and I'm going to link her socials down below. I don't think she makes tumblers anymore, but I have admired this design for years and I wanted to finally recreate it. So I just want to give credit where credit's due. But anyway, I have no idea how she made hers. I'm just going to show you how I made mine, how I would do it. And I hope you guys enjoy it. You know, I'm going to have all the products that you see in this video listed and linked down below in the description box. You might even find some discount codes for you there as well. So that's enough chit chat for me. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, you guys, so first things first, we're going to prep our tumbler. I'm going to be taping off my bottom this week because I don't feel like finishing the bottom of this tumbler. So I'm just going to use some electrical tape around the bottom rim. Doesn't have to be straight because we're going to run it through our edge trimmer to get that nice, straight, crispy edge. If you want to know how or why I don't finish the bottom of my tumbler sometimes, I will link a video down below that'll explain it and be super helpful for you. Once we've got the bottom taped off, I'm just going to scuff up the sides with a 120 grit sanding block to prep, and then we're going to clean it up with some acetone and a paper towel. Now we're ready to base paint our tumbler. I'm going to just be using a flat white spray paint today, nothing special, and we don't have to get a very solid coat. I just want to get a nice flat color on it. Once my paint was dry to the touch, I started mapping out my design using a pencil. I ended up not adhering to these lines. You're not going to see them in the end. I really just want to get a baseline for how I'm going to space out the different sections so that I know where to glitter, where I don't need to glitter, etc., etc. Next, we're going to add our glitter. I'm using epoxy to adhere my glitter today like I normally do, spreading on a super thin coat. This is probably like less than 1 milliliter of epoxy. And I'm using 4 different size cuts of a white opal glitter. I'm going to list all the glitters that I used down below in the description box. But the idea here is to have a couple different size cuts of white opal glitter because we want to concentrate the thickest cut through the center of what will later be our blue like geode section and fade that out with the finer cuts. This is going to create the illusion of a lot of depth in that center of the design and some interest that is going to look really pretty later on. So just bear with me. This is definitely a trust the process kind of moment. And also don't worry about getting any glitter on the very top and bottom of the tumbler because that's going to be covered up with something later on. We mainly want to make sure that we just get our coverage through that center section that we had penciled out earlier. After I'm done with my glitter, I'm going to let this dry on my turner. Normally I would just put this on my rack to dry, but because I didn't fully coat the cup with glitter, I didn't want any of this to move by just hanging it upside down on my rack. So I let it roll on my turner for about an hour and a half. Then I took it off and put it on my drying rack. I want to make sure this is fully dry. I'm not using a fast set. I'm using my own epoxy today. So the dry time on such a thin coat for this epoxy would be about 4 to 6 hours. Once my glitter was fully dry, I brushed off the excess, and we do not want to seal our glitter today. The reason we're not sealing it is because we're going to be adding alcohol inks to our raw dried glitter. I'm using 4 different colors from Jen's Crafted Gems Primary Pack Alcohol Inks. I will list the colors that I use down below in the description box. And I'm just using a magic eraser or like a plain melamine sponge to apply my inks. You can use a makeup sponge or whatever works best for you. I'm concentrating the darkest blue color through the center along where that chunkiest cut of glitter lays on our cup. Again, what we're doing is we're building some depth through the center of this section of our design. After I get that blue, dark blue line through there, we're going to start with a gradient out from the center. So the next color will be slightly lighter in shade from the last blue color that we used. This is like a turquoise kind of teal color. It's called Hades. The first color I used was ET Phone Home, I think, or maybe it's just Phone Home. I don't know. I can't remember. Again, I'll list them in the description box. So we're just going to outline that first blue line with the lighter color blue, trying to blend as we go. We can blend by just kind of dabbing over the edges of the last color. You don't have to get a whole lot of blending going on. This doesn't have to be very perfect. In fact, I really like the look of just that organic kind of gradient. If you need to add a little bit of rubbing alcohol to your sponge to get it a little juicier, that'll definitely give you some more mileage out of your color to help spread and blend it. After the teal turquoise-ish kind of color, I moved on to Dead Sea, which is like a light sky blue. And that's going to be on the outer edges of the other two blue colors. And we're not really going to spread out the color too much. Remember, we don't need to worry about the top and the bottom of the tumbler because we're covering that with something else later on. Once I was done with my blues, I realized I didn't think the middle section was dark enough, so I went in with some black and I just added a little bit of black through that center to really deepen the color. That was totally optional. I probably didn't need it, but I really, really wanted like a deep, deep blue through that center. I let my inks dry overnight and I did not seal them. And now I'm moving on to my first coat of epoxy. This first coat is about 60 milliliters. I'm going to spread it on like I normally would, and then I'm going to use my torch to pop any bubbles. And I am going to remove the tape along the bottom of my rim. If you are glittering and epoxying your whole cup, then you can ignore any instruction about the tape there at the bottom. I let this coat dry for about 10 to 12 hours before moving on to the next step. Now we're going to add the copper gold flake foils. I've got some Eileen's Tack It over and over glue and a small paintbrush, and we're just going to paint kind of a squiggly organic line outlining that blue section through the center. You want this to kind of be organic looking and just sort of wavy, willy-nilly, mimicking the line that you drew earlier with the pencil. That's why we drew that line earlier. You're probably not going to be able to see it now at this point. I couldn't. I sort of just guessed. After you paint on the glue, you're going to let it completely dry until it's clear. And then we'll start pressing on our copper gold flakes. There's really no right or wrong way to do this. You just sort of plop it on there. Make sure that your epoxy is fully dry though, otherwise those flakes are going to stick in places where they're not supposed to. I also want to look out for no straight lines or harsh looking lines. So you can avoid that by using small pieces of the flakes at a time. Here's what it should look like when we're done. I do recommend spray sealing this with like a clear gloss spray paint so that they don't shift around. That I didn't do that and mine definitely shifted around. It was very frustrating. Well, once we're done with that, we're gonna move on to adding some more epoxy and our colorants. I'm going to start by taping off my bottom again, and I'm going to spread about 20 to 30 milliliters of epoxy on. It should be pretty bumpy. Remember, we only applied one coat of epoxy over that glitter, so by this point we'll have a good amount of texture, particularly over that chunky glitter. Don't worry. But you don't want to add too much epoxy at this step, just enough to kind of feel the glide of your finger over the cup, and you still will feel some parts of the foils and the glitter through your glove. That's okay. If we add too much epoxy at this step, we're going to run into trouble later when we go to add our colorants. We don't want to get a lot of movement from the colorants that we're going to be adding here in a bit. With the remainder of our epoxy, I'm going to divide that into 5 different medicine cups, and I'm going to start mixing in my colorants. I'm going to be using about 5 different colorants today. I will list them down below in the description box. The most important one is this white epoxy dye from Alumilite. I definitely recommend using this instead of acrylic paint or alcohol ink or something because of how opaque it is, and the density is perfect for this project. I'm also going to use some rose gold mica powder from NMO Shop, Hermoine from Simply Sarah's. I think I'm using Vanishing Rose and Blue Bonnet and Pop's Beard, also from Simply Sarah's. Little pea-size amounts of each colorant at a time, okay? A little bit goes a long way. You just need a tiny bit. Once we get all of those mixed up in their separate little medicine cups, I'm going to start spreading on the white epoxy dye mixture first. All right, and I'm just going to use my finger to color in the lines here between the copper line that we created with our foils and the top rim of my tumbler, trying to get as much coverage as I can so you can't see what's below it. If you wanted to paint this with like some white acrylic paint first, you could. However, I really love the organic look that and like marbling that this gives, okay? And you can kind of see some of that blue underneath. That's what makes this so unique and beautiful and really gives it that depth and like organic beauty, okay? So very carefully spreading this on. We want to make sure we're not using too much or getting all gloopy gobby so that it goes past the copper line, okay? Next, I'm going to use my pointy silicone brush tool to paint in some of the gray colorant. This is that Hermoine from Simply Sarah's. It's like a silvery gray color. And just a little tiny bit. Do not drizzle it. Just draw it in with the point of your tool there. If you have a toothpick even, just to give it a very subtle look. Then I'm going to go in with my heat gun to get just a bit of movement. Not too much, just a little bit to kind of blend that in. Then I'm going in with Pop's Beard, which is like a pearly sparkly. And I'm just daubing it in here and there. Again, adding some interest. At some point, I also painted in some of that blue bonnet, but I didn't need it. If you wanted to skip that, you totally could. It wasn't... And I think I ended up not liking it because you could still see some of the blue from the ink and glitter layer through that white, which I thought was really beautiful. So I just wouldn't even add it. I don't even think I added the Vanishing Rose. I might have added a little bit. That's like kind of an iridescent shifty pink. Once I got done adding in all of the lighter color colorants in these white sections, I hit it with my torch and let them settle a bit. And then I painted in very fine veins of the rose gold colorant. I think this is Hepburn from nmoshop.com. And again, using the tip of my silicone brush tool, I just traced along that copper boundary line. You can see here, just adding depth and beauty to this, creating something so special, so beautiful. You could probably also do this with a paint marker, but I think it just looks so cool, kind of veining it in to the edge there. Look at how pretty. So I let that dry for about 8 to 12 hours. And now we're ready for our final coats. Normally I would sand around the top rim first and put on a decal, but I've been in a really big hurry this week. I didn't have time to show that part in my video, and I didn't have time to finish this cup this week either. But this is as far as we got, and that's pretty much all I would include in this tutorial anyway. But I hope you guys liked it. I think this turned out great. I'm super happy with it. I definitely don't think mine was as good as Jessica's, but I tried my best. I think I did it justice. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you like this video, be sure to give us a big thumbs up. And if you haven't already, Please subscribe to my channel. I upload new videos every Wednesday and Saturday. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon. And a big thank you to all of our Flynn Sisters exclusive members. Thank you for your pledge. Your support means the world to our channel. If you love this video, you could check out our last video here. Also be sure to find us on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and of course subscribe for all our new videos that come out every Wednesday and Saturday. Thanks so much for watching. See you soon.